In light of today being Friday the 13th, we thought we'd talk about what's scaring investors, but also why there might be more to the story. So as I was reflecting on what to write this week, going through, really carve out a couple mornings a week to go through all the research and analytics on what, on top of what I can catch on a day-to-day basis. What struck me, with all due apologies to Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the famed English poet, and her famous poem, "How Do I Love Thee? Let Me Count the Ways." I couldn't help but rephrase that and think about all the ways that pundits seem to hate the markets today, and really the level of pessimism that continues to dominate. You've had a lot of debates here to date on what data should we look to, really what were tariffs going to do to the economy. And I think anybody who's being honest would tell you, man, things have been whipsawed back and forth. It's really those, again, who've stayed to some kind of a process, not let those headline news whip them back and forth mentally, let alone within their portfolios, that have come out on the better side of all this news. I'm going to highlight 4 points, try to bring them around, some of which we've touched on in recent week. Point number 1 is data, as we talked about last week, so feel free to go back to that commentary. Data is for preparation, most notably emotionally within our bodies, so that we don't get panicked, don't get surprised. We understand what might possibly happen out there to, again, keep calm. Plenty of people out there still thinking they can predict the future with the data. I would challenge them, and we talked a little bit about this last week, to explain just how that's going to be. You've had people who are proponents of using soft data, think survey data, consumer sentiment, investor sentiment, plenty of articles. Oh, they're the leading indicator. They're down in the dumps as of a couple months ago. It's spelling doom and gloom, only to watch them hockey stick back up alongside the market. You had people who were looking to hard data, pointing that it was holding up. Well, now it's kind of weakening. Really, now it's kind of in a mixed bag with recent activity data, ISM data, and services, most important part of the economy, manufacturing, both disappointing. But labor, inflation, as we'll get to a little bit, improving. Looking to either one, let alone some of the inconsistencies in both, is going to prove difficult. So take it in, but if anything, use it to humble yourself into, again, following a process and not getting into that bad habit of trying to be predictive about what lies ahead in guiding your financial future. Point number 2, we've been hearing a lot about the U.S. debt downgrade. That was going to be the next thing to create a leg down within markets. As we've been telling clients for some time, as the team at Alpine Macro summarized in one of their pieces this week, it's almost impossible for a sovereign debt default where the central bank can act as a buyer of last resort, being 1 point. Number 2, the dollar not tied to a gold standard anymore, or another international reserve currency, with the US, again, being the reserve currency of the world. So without those things, that's not likely to be an issue anytime soon. Does that mean we should keep racking up the debts we're doing? I think everyone's in agreement that that's probably not a great course of action. But what we would encourage, and have been encouraging people again, is control your controllables. There's plenty of us that need to look at our own spending habits in light of our goals or in light of our own debt levels. That's where we can really make some improvement. That's where we can come alongside and engage and hopefully, again, help your plan, the state of your home, even if we can't clean up Congress, in a better place. Point number 3, valuations. We talked a lot about that going into last year. The equity risk premium. How much are you getting paid to take risk in stocks vis-a-vis bonds has been a big topic of conversation. Donald Luskin of Trend Macro summarized it pretty well this year, which again really comes back to the point that there is no singular data point or factor that should be followed as gospel. The theory would be, if you're not getting paid a lot of extra premium to buy a stock versus a bond, then you should be buying the bond. His Donald Luskin shares from 1982 to 1999, you had one of the lowest equity risk premiums, but you also had the best 17-year run in the stock market's history. So again, you can look at something, it can be indicative of what you believe might happen, but the market confuses and befuddles even the best prognosticators with regularity. Last point, which is maybe a bit of a cheat since it's 3 points, but they're also interrelated. coming up with point number 4 is tariffs, trade, inflation, the Fed, all very interrelated. Certainly was a popular narrative a couple months ago. You saw the market crash that kind of like COVID. This isn't going to resolve anytime soon. The market hates confusion, therefore the market will go down for the foreseeable future is the button narrative. Once again, the market confounds the brightest of investors and rebounds in record time. Some of the reasons for that is, again, what people tried to deduce would happen has not exactly played out. Most notably, inflation continues to come down. Yeah, there's been some relief in tariffs and pauses, but as the team at Trend Macro pointed out, tariffs have doubled on a year-to-date custom tax collection basis, and they've had no discernible impact on inflation. This week's reading that came out on Wednesday showed inflation down on the CPI reading to 2.4%. I've gotten a lot of questions. How can this be? I thought tariffs were supposed to be inflationary. As Brian Westbury summarized in his piece this week, we'll have a link to it in the written commentary. It's really monetary supply, M2 supply, that's going to drive inflation. As he summarizes relates to tariffs, tariffs can raise prices for the tariffed items, but then they leave less money left over for the other goods and services. They shuffle the deck chairs on the inflation ship, not how high or low the ship sits in the water. Beautiful picture analogy to help people explain what has occurred, again, in contradiction with so many predictions that we heard a couple months ago. Where we sit right now then is most analysts are believing now the Fed is really set up to potentially cut rates at the back half of the year. People quibble, is it 2, is it 3, is it 4? But again, things are headed in the right direction. That goes for trade too. Some good news on the trade front this week. A lot of progress made in trade talks with China. Some solid progress with our partner in Mexico. Plenty of other things to be resolved before the next supposed July 9th deadline. But at least with our biggest trading partners, things seem to be headed in the right direction. In closing, it's important to remember that challenges, issues, are ever present. That is not the thing that is going to keep companies from making improvements, showing their resiliency, and therefore usually then the market. Volatility is, of course, going to be a part of that journey. But if you use any of those things to scare you out of the markets, keep you out of the markets, then you're not going to get to participate, again, in those long-term growth potentials that historically equities have been able to provide for clients. Should that be the only thing in anyone's portfolio? Of course not. What is the right blend for you? How do we achieve those goals? How do we manage your debt and spending levels better than the US government does? That's what we're here to help with anytime. Thanks for watching.